In this video, we're going to get the motor running, we're going to set up our shop, and we're going to start building a 14-foot Ensenada Panga. Enjoy. Let's take bets. Is it gonna work? Not gonna work? Let's see. Oh, fuel come. Oh, you see, we got problems already. That's not what you want to see. You don't want to see. Give it another squeeze to make sure. You don't want to see gas coming out of your fuel filter. That's not good at all. That's not what you want. All right, we got that figured out. It just needed to be tightened up a little bit. I took it off, inspected it, cleaned it, tightened it up. No sweat. We're in neutral. Choke is out. Throttle is down. That's that. That's that. Let's hope these two aren't supposed to go to something. I'm sure I'll find out if they do. How about that? Got no water coming out. I'm not gonna run it very long because there's no water coming out of it, but it runs. Gonna need a new impeller, obviously. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Is it a good idea to let ice form in your outboard motor well? No. So dirty. Hi! Nice to see you again. Don't worry, I'll bring this mirror back to the big boat when we get working on that again. This officially starts the build of the 14-foot Ensenada Panga, which was drawn up by a guy named Jeff Spira, I think. Spira International, that's where you can get the plans. It's rated comfortably with a 10 horsepower motor, but I've got that 15 horsepower Yamaha that's gonna go on the back of it. Oh, that doesn't smell good at all. Everything on this boat except for the hardware, the fiberglass and the resin, and of course the paint can be purchased at your local lumberyard, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. I'm not using anything fancy, and the plans actually do not call for anything fancy. Lumberyard plywood is the way to go, according to Mr. Spira. There's a few ground rules. First of all, I'm not a professional boat builder. Second of all, alcohol and power tools do not mix. I've built a little temporary workshop here because Josh is building a truck in the garage. This is the next best option, have it close by home so I can work on it daily. First thing I'm going to do is cut all the lumber up that I need to build the frames of the boat. It calls for 2x3s for the frames. I have a bunch of 2x6s laying around. Basically, I'm going to rip them all in half to give me the lumber that I need. This should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's get down. Do you want to use a table saw without a guard on it? No! All right, so what I've got going on here is I've covered this 4x8 sheet of plywood with some butcher paper, masking paper, whatever you got. And then I've taken a center line here and all the measurements from the plans. Excuse my busted iPad screen. I know that's not what you want to see on your iPad, but sometimes we have problems. At any rate, the plans are pretty detailed for each frame, size, you know, all that sort of thing. But all the measurements are based off of a baseline and a center line. So I'm going to go ahead and mark out, I'm working on frame 1 right now, which is this one. I'm going to go ahead and mark out all the dimensions, and then I'm going to use those dimensions on the paper to transfer to the 2x3s we're using for the frame. And then we're going to bolt and glue the frames together. This here is just a simple step to make it easy so that you don't have to worry so much about angles and that sort of thing. All the corner points are measured for you, and you just line your lumber up on the paper on your drawing. You gotta take your time and make sure everything is square. Make sure your framing square is square to the lumber. You're gonna make mistakes, but you want to try to minimize that. Make your lines a little long because you don't know how much 2x4 or 2x3 that angle is going to take up. Measure 3 times and cut once. I say measure twice and cut once, so I'm advocating for 3 times. Double check, triple check, quadruple check. I only want to do this once. I don't want to have to rebuild anything. If a ladybug lands on your boat project, is that good luck? Something's wrong. Already something's wrong. I see what I did. Dumbass. See, you got a quadruple and triple check and all this. Double, quadruple, quintuple check. And that is the outline of my first frame. Ignore the squiggly marks. $12 1/4. All right. Transfer them to the top. This. That looks like it'll work. Now we'll build the rest of the frame now. See where I ripped the board here? It's a nice square edge. And your framing lumber's got this rounded radius corner on it. I want these flat square edges up against the hull, so that where the, see how that radius corner makes a gap right there in between the boards? But if you put the 2 flush ends together, no gap, right? And that's what I want up against the hull, so that there's no water seeping in between. Problem with using framing lumber is you get all these kind of imperfections, right? These knots, some of them loose knots. That's a tight knot, right? This is more of a loose knot. So I'm gonna end up doing some fill-in and some penetrating epoxy and stuff like that to make sure all these little imperfections, because this stuff will hold water here. Loose knots will hold water. Tight knots, not so much. Get it? Not so much. Well, I'm gonna fill these in, and any of these little gouges or whatever else will all be filled in and sanded flush after I build the frames, because I don't want them to rot away, you know? It's not what we want. Boom, like that, like that. And that's half of our frame right there, ladies and gentlemen. Transfer the line to the top, which in this case is actually the bottom. Boom. That's what I'm talking about. Look at that. Another reason why I'm marking this stuff off is so I know where my glue is going to go. Now this is supposed to be good stuff. I guess we'll find out. Waterproof and all that. And that would appear to be our first frame. Frame number 1. Done. Basically the same drill, frame after frame. And that's it. You know, when something's too easy, you try not to believe it. Like, ah, can't be done. So let's double check all the measurements. Takes a special kind of carpenter to cut a line in half. I like physics for opening a beer. Lever, fulcrum, beer. Stick the fulcrum under the lever. Number 3. Something I'd like to point out real quick. I built these frames all pretty much the same way. What I forgot to look for, or what I forgot to do, is leave this portion of the wood. This is gonna have to be notched out for some 1x3, right? So it's supposed to leave this portion of the wood without screws, but I'm a big dummy.